from the Earth to the translunar orbit.
Right.
So that's the first time we launch a probe directly into the translunar orbit.
Now, 15 minutes countdown to the big moment of the launch. Professor, going back to our previous question, we were talking about geography of the moon.
Yep.
Give our viewers a sense of how it looks like. We keep mentioning about the far side of the moon, and then there's also the south pole of the moon, and then there's the Aitken Basin. What is the relations of these different spots?
Well, you know that we mentioned about near side and the far side of the moon. So the near side of the moon occupy a half hemisphere of the moon, and the far side occupies the other. But you know that the total area of the moon is more than 38 million square kilometers. So it's very huge. And you know that what you mentioned, what we call the South Pole Aitken Basin, is also very huge. The diameter is more than 1,000 kilometers, so it's a very huge area. This time, the Long March 6, the sample point, will not be the South Pole, but it's in the southern hemisphere and in the middle latitude. But still, it is located inside the South Pole Aitken Basin, because you know the South Pole, the South Pole of the moon is in the basin. So that's the relationship between the different worlds.
And Professor Yang, let's now hear from a colleague from Pakistan. Daniel Khan is joining us live now from Islamabad. Well, Daniel, good to see you there. We know that Pakistan is sending a payload to the moon aboard Chang'e 6. Tell us more about the payload and, of course, its scientific significance.
Yes, Mong, I'm here at the Institute of Space Technology in Islamabad. I was here 3 months ago in March when students from the Shanghai University had arrived, and the significance about this satellite, it's called the iCube-Q, Q for Qamar, which is the moon in Urdu language, and it has been created in collaboration with the students from the Institute of Space Technology in Islamabad and the students from Shanghai University. They got together and met for the first time in March this year, and we covered the intensive workshops that they had, and it was quite interesting. I spoke to the students. They are very happy. This payload basically is about the weight is 7 kgs. It will be traveling on the Chang'e 6 probe, and what the professors have told me is that it is going to be orbiting the moon by itself. It's going to be laid off around 200 to 300 kilometers before the probe lands on the moon, and this satellite will be orbiting the moon, and it has 2 high-definition cameras, and it is going to be taking these pictures of the far side and the dark side of the moon, as they call it, and something that the whole world is looking for. As you can see behind me, all the local Pakistani media and the state media is here to cover this momentous event.
Sure. Well, Daniel, as you mentioned, this will be the country's maiden moon mission, the iCube-Q. Certainly there's a lot of expectation and enthusiasm for it. Tell us how the local scientific community is reacting to this launch.
Yes, the scientists and the students and the faculty that have been involved in the creation of this satellite, they're very excited. I've spoken to them. They're saying that this is not the first time that Pakistan is collaborating with China, but they say that in nano satellites, this is going to be the first time that Pakistan has launched such a project. But they say that they are now looking forward to even more sophisticated technology shared by the Chinese counterparts as far as space technology is concerned. So yes, there is a lot of excitement inside this auditorium. It is full to the brim. Hundreds of students of the institute have gathered to witness this historic event.
A historic day for Pakistan. A dream of so many aspiring students to explore the unknown is about to come true.
It all started from my childhood. Basically, it looked really fascinated when I look at the moon continuously walking with us. Okay, and I usually stare at the moon from my rooftop.
The iCube-Q satellite, designed and developed by Pakistan's Institute of Space Technology in collaboration with China's Shanghai University and Pakistan's National Space Agency, represents a milestone in space cooperation. Made by Chinese and Pakistani students, it will be attached to Chang'e 6 mission. IQQ CubeSat will be the first nano-satellite to travel into deep space exploration. It is also the first satellite collaboration mission between Pakistan and China, as well as the universities, a symbol of mutual trust and youngsters' exploration of the moon.
At the moment of the launch of the Pakistan and the SGTU CubeSat, I'm very delighted to be part of this momentous occasion, and I can't wait to watch the launch.
In March, students from Shanghai University arrived in Pakistan to meet and train with their fellow Pakistani students. The Chinese team brought a copy of the satellite to Pakistan. It was the only time that both teams met and interacted.
Collaboration with China is really significant, and it signifies global cooperation.
Equipped with 2 optical cameras, the iCubeQ orbiter promises unprecedented insights into the lunar surface. iCubeQ has cleared rigorous testing and earned its place aboard the prestigious Chang'e 6 mission, the latest in China's acclaimed lunar exploration saga. But why does the mission matter for Pakistan?
It actually gives a big boost to our young people so that they can look forward to such projects and even more complex and bigger projects in the future.
CubeSats, renowned for their compact design and versatility, have transformed space exploration, empowering universities, research institutions, and commercial ventures to participate in cutting-edge missions at a fraction of the cost. This collaborative endeavor underscores the deepening ties between Pakistan and China in the pursuit of scientific discovery beyond Earth's bounds.
Pakistan seeks to enhance its partnership in space exploration with China. Experts say this joint endeavor will not only advance Pakistan's role in space exploration, but also transition it from the CubeSats initiative to more sophisticated programs. So Mong, just minutes to go for the launch, and I will be joining the students and the faculty members who have given hours and hours of their hard work into the launch that is going to be taking place in just a few minutes.
Yeah, Daniel, sure. Hopefully we'll be witnessing this blast off together. Thank you, Daniel, for bringing us that from Islamabad. So certainly international cooperation is one highlight of the Chang'e 6 mission, and as we know, the moon has always been an object of wonder, a site of romance for the Chinese, and of course payload from Pakistan, from France, from the European Space Agency, as well as from Italy. So what does it mean to have this joint efforts in the joint exploration of the moon?
Well, you know that for China, for a space capable like China to conduct international cooperation will be very, very important and very, very meaningful for us. You see that today China is a big country in space field. We have so much launches and so much space missions, but we are not, we view ourselves, not recognize ourselves as an advanced country in space field. To become an advanced country, we have all kinds of measures. We can have all kinds of benchmark to become an advanced country. One important thing is the international cooperation. So we think that the international cooperation is extremely important for us to become an advanced country. To achieve this goal, we not only have this kind of cooperation in manned space flight, in the applications, space applications, the Earth observations and the space science, but also in these lunar missions. You know that today it's already almost become a tradition for the space capable nations to have the payload, especially scientific research payload from other countries when they conduct a space mission.
Yeah, and this is not the first time China is
not
carrying
the first time
international
for China
payload.
and other countries. So for all these missions, they have the payload from other countries.
Live feed from the launch pad, it looks gloomier than like 10 minutes ago. Are you concerned about the weather condition?
You see, as you mentioned, the weather condition is a very, very important factor for us to consider it. But you know that whether we go for launch or not is a decision of the commander of the headquarters of the launch site. So you know that for the influence of all kinds of different factors, we have the criteria.
5 minutes to the countdown.
Yeah, T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Right. So we mentioned earlier we have this narrow window and multi-orbits technology. Does it mean that it's the rocket could have the go-ahead to blast off in the next 50 minutes starting in 4 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. So as I mentioned, the 17:27 o'clock will be the front edge of our launch window. So this is the earliest moment we can conduct the launch. But if some small error happened or something we must handle during the process, we can stop this launch process and wait. And if the problem can be solved within 50 minutes, we still have the chance to conduct the launch today. So that's the narrow launch window, because the capability of our powerful Long March 5 rockets can provide some design margin for the launch window. So according to its capability and what we need for it, we can expand the time period permission for the launch. So this is a reason why today we can choose the narrow launch window. So it brings more chances for the launch today. So we can have the tolerance if something wrong happens.
And let's circle back to our discussion about international cooperation. We understand that the Outer Space Treaty in 1967 is considered to be the cornerstone of international space law. Over 100 countries signed up to this legally binding treaty, which details rules governing the exploration of space, peaceful exploration of space.
So as a space-capable nation, China also signed this treaty very, very early. So today, to be reasonable and to be responsible. Okay, 3 minutes
countdown.
T-minus 3 minutes and counting.
Any announcement, any command from the scientists there, the engineers there, is making us
all the ground staff has withdrawn from the launch complex.
Right.
So at this moment, as I mentioned, so there will be many critical steps. For instance, the rotation or the withdrawal of the service arms from the previously attached to the launch tower. Right. The cables, the pipes. You may notice that maybe at this moment the white fox has already disappeared.
That's right.
So that means that the refueling process has already been ended. Yes. So it's all on its own. And during this following seconds, we will also transfer the electricity power supply from the service tower to our launch vehicle itself to use the storage batteries on board our Long March 5 launch vehicle.
Sure. Now, 2 minutes before the launch, we'd like to give our viewers a little bit more background on this mission. The Chang'e 6 spacecraft will embark on a 53-day journey to the far side of the moon and back, returning lunar soil and rocks to Earth.
Great. That's what I mentioned. The arms will turn from
finally being detached from the carrier rocket.
And all kinds of cables.
Is that a final sign that all systems go? The rocket is ready to go.
Yeah.
As scheduled.
As we mentioned, all kinds of cables detached from the launch vehicle. We also have really air conditioners in the payload fairing.
And really at this moment, I'm pretty sure that the engineers there, us and viewers watching this moment are holding their breaths.
Yes.
And again, the highlight of this mission is that the Chang'e 6 will be traveling to the far side of the moon, retrieve lunar samples, and bring them back to Earth. And if successful, this will be a history-making mission. 1 minute countdown from the launch pad in Wenchang in southern China's Hainan province.
You can see the 4 boosters.
50 seconds countdown. Well, certainly this mission will help us understand the Earth's formation, its evolution over billions of years. 30 seconds countdown.
The onboard computer is now in charge of everything.
Right. And certainly we'll bring you every detail from the launch as the rocket blasts off. Final 10 seconds countdown.
3, 2, 1. Ignition.
You're now watching live feed from Wenchang's Satellite Launch Center. China's Chang'e 6 mission blasts off into the sky. It's all systems go, Professor Yang.
So magnificent. And now the tower is clear.
It's now starting its epic journey to the moon.
So at the moment, 17 seconds after liftoff will be the pitch over, change the direction.
Right.
And now you can see this is a video captured by the camera mounted on the launch vehicle. Actually speaking, on the core stage, you can see 2 of the rocket boosters.
Right. Are the cameras infrared?
This is a visible light camera.
Invisible light camera.
Yep. And you can see the flames of the boosters.
Yeah.
Each have 2 rocket engines, YF-100 rocket engines with a thrust more than 120 tons.
Sure.
And the booster will work for nearly 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yep.
And then they will detach from
We
the
can
rocket.
hear from the ground stations. The voice comes from the reporters of the ground stations. They mentioned that the telemetry received normally and the spacecraft fly normally.
Now, as we mentioned, this mission will last for 53 days, much longer than the previous mission, the Chang'e 5. It's going to make a soft landing on the far side of the moon, somewhere around the Aitken Basin. And then it's going to bring back lunar samples from the moon.
Next step will be the separation of the side boosters. We have 4 boosters within several seconds.
As we were discussing, Professor Yang, how long would it take for the probe to actually land on the moon?
Well, the powered descent only lasts for several minutes, less than 10 minutes. But they will wait for this moment on the circumlunar orbit for several days. So that depends on the design of the whole mission profile. Next, we will be seeing the separation of the booster soon.
Now, even the launch moment was successful. We couldn't say that this entire mission is a success because every step of the way will be pivotal for the entire mission. There's complicated procedures involved, and we're going to bring you all the details in our live coverage. What will be the moment that marks the success of the launch phase of this mission?
Yes.
Which part?
The separation of the probe with the end stage of the launch vehicle, and also that's the unfolding of the solar panels.
Solar panels.
Okay, great, beautiful.
Boosters?
Yes, all the 4 side boosters separated normally.
Applause from the control center. And that's certainly another step forward.
Yes. So the rocket will continue to work several minutes. So and the next critical step will be the separation of the payload fairing.
Right.
Because that it's in the ascending phase and its altitude is go higher and higher. So at a certain moment, we do not need the payload fairing to protect the probe.
Right. We are now a little over 4 minutes into this mission, and it looks like so far so good.
So now it's a flying of the first stage. So as I mentioned, the first stage have 2 rocket engines with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen as a propellant. And each of the this is a 3D animation.
3D animation and back
this
to
is a
the
video
cameras
from the camera.
Right.
And you can see this is not at this moment we can see the fuselage of the first stage. And as I mentioned, we have 2 rocket engines on the first stage of the YF-77 rocket engine. Each have a thrust more than 50 tons. And we just heard a voice. That's the ground station, the radar tracking the spacecraft very normally.
And approximately how high is it? How far away is it now from Earth?
Actually
Because we
speaking,
can now see that beautiful view of
yes,
the Earth from the
actually
camera.
speaking, it's already, I believe, it's already more than 50 kilometers high. And when it is high enough, as I mentioned, we will conduct the separation of the payload fairing. Oh, you can already see on the left our screen, we can see the camera inside the camera, inside the payload fairing. We've already seen the scene inside the payload fairing.
Right. That's, of course, giving us a very clear look, a very clear vision of the payload from inside the probe.
Yeah, inside the payload fairing. So we can see that the Chang'e 6 probe is stored in this payload fairing.
Right.
And next with the, okay, great,
It's
beautiful.
opening up,
Separated.
separated.
So we don't need the, as I mentioned, because it's already high enough, we don't need the protection of the two pairs of payload fairing. So it's already in outer space.
So next phase will be the second stage ignition.
First, we should separate the first stage.
First stage, right.
Yeah. Just about 8 minutes after the liftoff will be the first shutdown of the first stage. Sorry, the separation of the first stage.
Separation of the first stage followed by the second stage ignition. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the 3D animation, and this is a video from the board on the rocket. Now you can see the beautiful Earth and the curve of the horizon of the Earth.
It really looks like, I know it is a technically demanding and challenging mission, but it's also a very romantic and beautiful journey.
Yeah, what
to
you
the
see
moon.
now is just above the Pacific Ocean.
Right. This mission is going to last for 53 days, and it consists of 11 phases. Every detail, every single action could have an effect on the entire mission.
Every step, as you mentioned, every step is important. Every step is critical. So although the thrust of the core stage, as I mentioned, of the first stage is much smaller than its full boosters, but it will work longer because the liquid hydrogen has higher energy. Great, the flight is normal according to the voice reported by the ground stations.
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong, Professor. The spacecraft consists of 4 separate components.
Exactly.
There's an orbiter, lander, ascender, and the re-entry module. And
exactly.
After launch, the Chang'e 6 will travel to the moon and enter lunar orbit, and the lander and the ascender will travel to the surface.
Yes.
While the orbiter and re-entry module stay in orbit.
The combination of the orbiter and the returner will stay in the lunar orbit to wait for the ascender.
And the ascender and the lander will touch down at
And
the far side of the
samples.
moon and collect samples to the re-entry module.
No, to the ascender. So they get the samples in the container. Okay. Great. The first stage has separated.
First stage separation.
And now will be the ignition of the second stage.
So my understanding is that the ascender will blast back into lunar orbit and transfer the sample to the re-entry module.
Look, you can see that we can see this is a camera mounted on the second stage. We can see the first stage separate and going far behind the second stage.
Another view from
this is a view of the. We can see that there is also a camera mounted near the rocket engines, so we can see the working of the rocket engines. So on the right of the screen, we can see the video camera mounted on the rear part of our second stage. So we can monitor the working of the rocket engines. This rocket engine is called YF-75D. So it is also use liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen as a propellant. It will work much longer, although the thrust is much smaller than the first stage. But it is very unique because it will ignite twice. So with the first ignition, it will burn several minutes. So at the moment, about more than 10 minutes after launch, it will shut down first.
Yeah.
So at this moment, it will enter what we call the parking orbit. And it will slide in this, float in this parking orbit for about 10 minutes, which causes coast phase.
And once it enters orbit, well, before it touches down on the moon and after it goes into orbit, one very important step is to slow down the probe. Just to make sure it makes a soft landing on the moon.
So you know that there are two steps. The first is what we call the lunar orbit insertion, which means that we slow down the vehicle from the translunar orbit to the circumlunar orbit. And then we, with what I mentioned, as you mentioned, the combination of the lander and ascender, with a combination of these two spacecraft, we use the propulsion system to slow down the vehicle from about 1700 meters per second to zero. Also, the altitude from about 100 kilometers to zero within only 10 minutes. So this is also another critical step.
Fascinating. And another highlight of the mission is that there's this relay satellite.
Yes, the Magpie Bridge 2.
鹊桥 2 in Mandarin and Magpie Bridge 2 in English. So simply put, there is no direct line of sight from the Earth to the far side of the moon.
Absolutely.
And that's why we need that relay satellite to learn more about what's going on there and also receive data.
Well, you know, as you mentioned, the Magpie Bridge 2 or the 鹊桥 2 data relay satellite. But I should emphasize that 鹊桥 2 is an extremely important part for our sample return mission from the far side of the moon. We cannot see our probe, the lander on the lunar surface with our ground stations. And not only, you know, that this time the 鹊桥 2 or the Magpie Bridge 2 not only acts as a bridge to conduct the communication, but also it is very important for us to measure the precise position and velocity of the lander, the coordinate of the landing point, and also during the ascending phase of the ascender. You know that the basic requirement for rendezvous and docking is that we must ensure the ascender entered an orbit with the same orbital plane of the orbiter.
Sure.
So that's really important.
So does the Magpie Bridge providing data or visual images from the far side?
Okay, we can see, we hear the voice of the ground commander that the second stage has already shut down for the first time. Now the whole combination of the rocket and our probe has entered the coast phase. So it will last about 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes.
You know that for any probe to the moon, we must have or conduct the translunar orbit insertion near the equator. But you know, although you know that Hainan province is the most southern province of China, but still it's not located on the equator. So that is reason why we need a coast phase. So when the first shutdown of the second stage completed, we will have a coast phase about 10 more minutes, and then we ignite again near the equator, and then it will be the translunar orbit insertion. We can just wait.
So again, the Magpie Bridge 2, does it provide data or visual images of how the probe is there retrieving samples from the Aitken Basin?
Actually speaking, the camera mounted on the lander will monitor the whole sampling procedure. And then the signals of these videos will transfer first to our Magpie Bridge 2 data relay satellite, and then forward it to the Earth.
Is there a time delay, I would imagine?
The time delay is only 1 more second. You can
a little more than a second.
Yeah, because you know that it's too far from the Earth. The distance is more than 380,000 kilometers away.
What if the command center gives some orders to the probe? Does the Magpie Bridge 2 also do the job?
Exactly. So we cannot directly send the command to the probe, to the lander directly. We can only first send the command to the Magpie Bridge 2 and then forward that to the lander. So now we can still, you know, that at this moment we still have the communication with the spacecraft with the help of our Tianlian data relay satellite. So you can see we can still send the video captured by the camera mounted on the second stage.
Yeah.
So this is a 3D animation, but it is based on the real data we get from the parameters measured by the sensors on board our spacecraft. So it's just fly above the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
So when it reaches the equator, it will ignite again.
Yeah. Before we get to the technical details of this mission, Professor Yang, let's talk about the different types of landing or different types of lunar exploration.
Yep.
Because there are the flybys, there's the hard landings, and then there's the soft landing. I remember there's one more type. Which part is the most technically challenging?
Absolutely, the sample return will be the most challenging one, like this one. You know that, as we discussed before, China has already conducted 3 phases of the lunar exploration program in 3 very simple Chinese words: 绕、落、